Okay, trying to keep these little promos short and sweet. Jesus, is there anybody who's not having a Black Friday deal? God, every website, every ad, everywhere I turn, I got a Black Friday deal. Well, we're no different. So here, just bring it to your attention. Be going all week. 30, 35, 40%. Got to use these codes. Easiest way to keep track of this, if you're considering it, is come over to our Twitter feed. Or write us, right? You can always write us. We're easy to reach. Okay, guys, there you go. There's the pro. Okay, guys, how we doing? Here we are on Wednesday the 27th, day before Thanksgiving. Crypto on the move here. So we're looking at crypto today, and this was called out and requested. Well, we had a couple of members, but we have a monthly competition every month, and this is from our current top devil, and he's been eyeballing this and requesting this for a while, and a few people chimed in, so I thought we'd take a look at it here. I had been reluctant to look because we just don't have a lot of history here, less than a year. We hit Binance here, and it looks like right around April, May of this year, but we're starting to get some good technical movement here and a fairly good pop. And this is, you look across the top 50 coins. This is kind of the pattern we're seeing here. There's a lot of these where we just have these bases down here. Now, a base is, is it a technical foundation to build from? Well, we could tighten it up and say, okay, well, we got a lot of, you can make a case that here, just looking at our volume profile, there's accumulation is going on down here, right? Now you see that a lot. They go down to 1 cent, 2 cent, accumulation. So I don't put a lot of weight in that, but when it's this glaring here, when it's kind of our one wave is framing this, it's worth paying attention to. So as we are now coming out of this, and we're doing it with a very clear, like this is when Elliott is hard to dispute, right? A very clear impulse, clean, clear, technical 5-wave structure banging right out of this base building here. Now if you come down here, it's, I got to open it up so you can get a little perspective here. Certainly, right? So buyers are in control here as we've ripped right out of this here. Now, yeah, of course, we're getting a little hot here, as we did here. Note how far the RSI went here for the one wave, and then a long length of time of the proposed 2 here. It's kind of, it makes you look at this and go, is this a 1-2? You're kind of stuck with it, right? So I'm going to pull this off again. We aren't at the absolute low. We hit the 707 here. Let me take this off now. So it's a candidate here. So the length, the symmetry is a bit odd in terms of the length of the time relative of the 2 relative to the 3. But looking at how we come out of here, man, what a pretty impulse. So I think until proven otherwise, we got to go 1-2. We got to see how this develops now. We've just now, so per the proposed, if I'm right on it here, wave 1 here to our wave 2, well, we're just coming up to, well, this will be beyond because of how far we've gone on the 2. So if I get right on that low. So we're right in the window. We're beyond the 1618 because we went beyond the golden zone here. So we're up here in the pocket for where you'd be anticipating that 3, but nothing says we have to stop there. Now, again, you look here and, maybe a little divergence. Maybe some of the buying is running out of steam here. So this is, I think, I wouldn't want to be a buyer right here, but all it's doing is setting up the potential retrace for the 4. So if we lean into the idea here that despite the very long 2, we've got a candidate here for a 1, 2, 3. Yeah, the alternate would be this, and if it keeps going, we might be back here reconsidering this. But right now, there's no reason not to think 1, 2 ripping into the 3. Now, if it's going to really rip, this could just be the 1 of the 3. So that remains to be seen. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Right now, I've got a candidate for the 1, 2, 3. So just accepting that. Let's pull some of this off here. We'll keep our geometry. Now, as you just saw here, if I pull back out here, we do have some resistance just coming from our absolute high, right? We just kind of looking here, if we're putting in a low here coming back up, you know, that wouldn't surprise me. We bump our heads here at the 50. You can kind of just, you know, look left where we have all of this prior resistance here. There's not a lot. I mean, there's not a lot to stand in its way. If we get through that, so you just try and map it out here. Let's go down to the hourly and see. Take a look here at this impulse here and see how we look technically. So just the basics, right? We'll just take the length of the third, get it right on there. So there we are, retrace between the 23 and the 38, exactly where you'd look for it. We're just tagging the first algo target. So this looks quite technical. Now we just, to add a little confluence to that, let's use some traditional Elliott measure and take the length of the 1, project that from the 4, kind of in between, right? So that's why I say, potentially now there's room for this to carry on here. So if we take the 1, now here's a straight 50. So 1, 2, third, right? We've got some, there's still some upside here. So the 2's right at the 50. It's very technical. So we get an impulse in the 1, you get just a pretty AB, it's a little hard to see, right? Open this up, little ABC into the 2, push up, kind of this typical confusion here as you just go sideways for the 4. So it's probably, it looks like it's a triangle actually. So it looks like we've got this coming down here and this going up here. So we get a little triangle in the 4 and then we just scream right out of that into the 5. So again, you know, there's nothing quite technical here other than the swing here, right? That gives us our first algo target here, but this is a shallow retrace. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little further here. Again, this is moving pretty well. Now, granted, we are in the overbought. We've got a little divergence, but just because you see it, that's just a snapshot in time. This can continue to push higher, as can the volume, as can this. So just so we have a little hook here, you know, certainly that wouldn't be a sell signal. So now you're sitting here going, hey man, I got a nice rip into an impulse, right? Hard to argue with the impulse there, whether you're an Elliott fan or not. So what we're just kind of waiting here, saying, well, at some point we're going to get a pivot. So I'll kind of leave that on here. If and when we get, well, we're going to get a pivot here eventually. So even if we just eyeball that 100, so parity between the 1 projected from the proposed 4 here, if we were to get something like that up here, we see our fourth target, right? So here's the negative 1618. The 1272, all right, of the length of the 1 from the 4, which would be the next candidate. So you could really push this up here. And then you got the big 50 from the high. So at some point, we're going to run into that. And here, let's get this one off and this one off. So when we do get our pivot here, if this is going to play as our 2, then we're just going to, standard stuff here. So I'll just, this was the 100 here. So at some point, this would be just ideal. This is so steep, the geometry doesn't play here other than what I would do in this case. When they're this steep, eventually we'll get a pivot here. I'll just use a regression channel. All right, so the key to the regression channel is what you're using as your pivot high. So right now, the only candidate here is our absolute high. So if this starts to break and we get a move out of this, obviously we'll be anticipating a 3 to set that up for the move up to the 5. So if that's 3, 4, wouldn't that just be ideal? At some point, we're going to come out of this. We'll start the little retrace, and then the setup is there, and it's always just that. It's a candidate for the 4 to the 5. All right, so if that, let's pull back out. If that plays, where are we? All right, so if this goes 1, 2, 3, well, note here, I'm going to take that. Let me take this regression channel off. All right, if we were to get up here and get to that 50, boy, this starts to look really attractive for that 4. All right, so this is very much one to be on your radar here. I mean, that would just be gorgeous. So again, there's no we can't put a pivot on this yet because we don't have it yet. We got let's get the A started before we start calling it a 3 high in. Right now, it's still going. So that move up here to the 100 would be the next target I'd be looking for. But really, you just like this move is, you know, we're too late for that move. So if you're in this, looking for the retrace here, you kind of want to look left and say, hey, is there any other structure here that I might take advantage of? So this, right? Note here how this starts to line up. This, we've been up here towards the 50, so this, well, I'd wick it off here just to kind of keep an eye on it, right? Prior resistance, all right? If we're going to go up here, if there's a front run on the 50, that might be, can I do that? That might be where you'd find it. Boy, that's getting really precise here now. So down for the 4, you've got this structure here. That all lays up very nicely. Yeah, still too steep here to put anything else on it. So just this framing here seems to be our best bet on the geometry. Now, if you're not familiar with this project, then I didn't know a lot about them. I mean, there's several of these. I use Masari too, but the Coin Checkup, again, I have no relationship with these guys. I just like the site. So you want to do a little digging, right? It's certainly climbing on their algo score here. It's, you know, still number 174, but it's, you know, it's on the way up. Interesting. Now, we don't have a lot of history here, so that's likely why you see the lower score here, and relatively speaking. Short term, right, this is all trend following, right? Strong buy. When was the last time you saw a strong buy on an alt, right? There haven't been many. So here we just see all that price action. So this, but if you're curious about, you know, what it's all about, I mean, you've got resources here. It's worth reading this, right? You want to at least have some feel for what it is you're trading. Not just, oh, it's moving, let's trade it. All right, so yeah, I mean, the technician, everything known fundamentally is factored into that price point here. So we have an alt on the move, right? Just what we'd like to see. So one to be on your radar, personally, I wouldn't go near that on the buy side here until we get a retrace. Now, retrace it, I'm all over it. Right? Love it. Right? That's a nice looking trade. All right, thanks to our top devil for bringing that to our attention. One for your watch list here, just waiting patiently. Sometimes the hardest part of trading is waiting for the setup and not forcing it. So don't give in to that temptation. If you're buying it here, you're just playing FOMO. All right, guys, back to you in a little bit.